Happy International Women's Day. From Geek Vibes Nation, I am Tia Fabi, and I wanted to take a moment to do a video where I highlight some characters in movies, TV shows, books, video games, and more that I feel are incredibly well written and well portrayed. Obviously, this list is just a fraction of characters that are out there. It's also opinionated, so your list may look different than mine, and I absolutely welcome that. Today is a day, as all days should, where we are celebrating um, the amazing women in fiction, but I also want to celebrate women in real life. So obviously, if you have a woman from history who you think should be highlighted on today and all days, please make sure you comment that down below. But this list will be exploring fictional women from, again, movies, TV shows, video games, cartoons, and more. Um, this list is in no particular order. And I'm not going to call it a top 10 just because, again, I'm not ranking these or anything. I just kind of wanted to highlight a few of my favorite female characters for International Women's Day. So I want to start by, first of all, kind of doing a blanket statement and saying any woman from A Song of Ice and Fire. That includes Daenerys, Cersei, even Brienne of Tarth, Sansa, Arya, and then even characters from House of Dragon like Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra and all that. Any character who George R. R. Martin has written, in my opinion, is always an incredibly well written character. Even if their actions you don't agree with and they're the villain like Cersei Lannister, I always feel that George R. R. Martin knows exactly how to pinpoint different aspects of women to kind of really make them just great. Um, I did a whole video on Cersei Lannister recently, so you can obviously check that out. But I think it's just within his writing as well as the portrayal of the characters by the actresses that have really brought these characters to life. But even if you don't watch Game of Thrones, you don't watch House of the Dragon, if you just read the books, they are incredibly well written. I just cannot get enough of any female character from any of George R. R. Martin's work. I think they're all fabulous. I think they all go through their own journeys, and maybe some of them aren't traditionally strong, or some of them don't start off in a great way, but they all just kind of transcend into these phenomenal roles that, again, even if you don't agree with what they have done, they're still amazing. I think the next person that I kind of wanted to highlight is honestly from a video game, and it has to be Sadie Adler from Red Dead Redemption 2. Um, I remember when I first played Red Dead Redemption 2, you're introduced to Sadie Adler. She is a widow, who, well, she was made a widow by a gang in the video game, the O'Driscolls, and she's taken by Dutch to, temporarily join his gang, the Vanderlyn gang, while she kind of recovers from being attacked, from her husband being killed. And from a character who could have just maybe stayed the grieving widow, her arc in RDR2 is honestly phenomenal. It transcends, I feel like, any female character video game trope that unfortunately so many characters have fallen into. She not only is completely able to kick ass, but she also is caring. She has a strong sense of morale. She can, hold her own in a battle. And she is just one of the best characters, not even just one of the best female characters, but one of the best characters, in my opinion, personally, in video game history. Sadie Adler is just a phenomenal character who I honestly wish we could have played as. You don't play as her, you play as Arthur Morgan, and then in the epilogue of the game, you play as John Marston. But Sadie Adler is often with you. There are a lot of missions where you are with her side by side. And in Red Dead Redemption 2, as you're playing as Arthur, she is one of the only people that Arthur can turn to trust towards the end of the Vanderlyn gang. And she is just this character that I look at, and I was so happy from start to finish with her character arc. There was at no point where I said, "Oh, I don't really like the direction that she's being taken into." Everything was seamless, everything was smooth. And even though she fully became an outlaw, she became a bounty hunter at some point, she has moments where it seems very much so where she is kind of almost at times hollow due to the death of her husband. She also is very caring and very understanding. She's understanding of Arthur as he is descending further into his illness. She is very kind to Abigail. She has this very like nurturing spot when it comes to Jack. She's just this like very wonderful character that I think in especially in a video game sense where unfortunately a lot of female characters are poorly written, Sadie Adler just shines amongst all of them. So I definitely want to give a highlight to Sadie Adler from Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't know if we're ever getting a Red Dead Redemption 3, if we are, when that's happening, but I would certainly like to see more of Sadie Adler in the future. I think that if Rockstar wanted to have where you are going to play as a woman as opposed to a man, like you played in the first and second Red Dead Redemption, I feel as if Sadie Adler would be a phenomenal character for us to play as. But that's neither here nor there. Sadie Adler is phenomenal. I then wanted to highlight Maeve from Westworld. So let me start first by saying that I did not watch the third or fourth season of Westworld. I just watched the first two. At this point now, Westworld is canceled. It's not getting a fifth season. I I don't know. I had no desire to see season three. I once I heard that once I saw the trailer and I heard the direction that they were going into, I kind of really lost interest. My biggest thing that I loved Westworld for was the setting of being on Westworld. And so with season three kind of really diverting from there, and I believe season four as well, it just wasn't my cup of tea. Regardless, I think that season one of Westworld is still some of the greatest writing and story that I have ever seen in a TV show. I mean, it really is phenomenal. If you just want to watch season one as a standalone, I highly recommend it. Season two was good as well. I think it gets a lot of flack from fans, but I actually enjoyed it. But that's neither here nor there. We have the character of Maeve. And at first, when you're watching Westworld, you think that the story is highly focused on Dolores, which it is. She is obviously one of the main characters, but I never found myself as dedicated to her storyline as I was to Maeve's. In my opinion, Maeve was the first host that really started questioning her existence and started looking for answers. I absolutely love the way Thandie Newton portrayed Maeve. I thought everything about her was so well written, how strong she was, how cunning she was, just and the fact that she had more of a moral epicenter than Dolores did. There's multiple moments where Dolores and Maeve have confrontations, and I always found myself on Maeve's side more than I was on Dolores's side. Everything about Maeve just showed how you can have this very sensual, coy figure, but also just have her not be one dimensional. I thought that her performance was absolutely brilliant. Her cunning, her writing, everything about Maeve was amazing. And I think that if we are going to make a list of well written characters, I could not leave Maeve out of this because it was her story arc largely that really got me invested in Westworld and what kept me invested in Westworld, even when I was kind of teetering, not enjoying some of the storylines that we were watching. If we just wanted to harvest Maeve's storyline, especially in that second season where she kind of goes on her own journey that's completely separate from Dolores and we're exploring different parks, I think that the way she approaches things and her understanding of other characters, her understanding of other hosts and other women, I think was just very well written and very well approached. So I definitely have to talk about Maeve from Westworld. Um, a few others that I kind of wanted to highlight. First of all, one of my favorite female characters from movies, books, whatever, is the character of Amy Dunn from Gone Girl. Now, the thing is that when we talk about strong female characters, we don't always have to say that they are good. You don't need to have a good character in order for that character to be well written. Because certainly, in my opinion, neither Rosamund Pike's or Ben Affleck's characters in Gone Girl are good people. Um, the character of Amy Dunn, played by Rosamund Pike, in fact, kills someone in the movie. She is not a good person. However, she is incredibly well written. I just, and this is another thing with the movie Gone Girl, right? When I originally attempted to watch Gone Girl, it took me a few times to watch it because the beginning first 10 minutes are a little dry, in my opinion, and they don't really make sense or they're not really that exciting until you've watched the movie a second time. But once you get past those first 10 minutes, you really get into the meat of the story. And when you find out what really is going on in the movie, it's so good. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's so phenomenal. And that is largely due to the character Amy Dunn. Spoiler alerts, I guess. I mean, it's been some years since it's come out, but if you have not seen Gone Girl, this will be very much spoiled. When you find out that the character Amy has not been kidnapped, but she, in fact, has disappeared her own self and framed it on her husband, it is so deliciously brilliant. And I can't. Um, and obviously, she's incredibly pragmatic, and her character, to a large degree, is acting, um, like a sociopath because she kind of lets you know that the character that she was and the person that her husband thought she was is a carefully curated version of herself that she made up. But I love that. I love the acknowledgement of it. I love just the voiceover and her, just how well written she was. And there's this one speech that she does, right? And I'm actually looking it up currently because I want to talk about it a little. Because there's one monologue that she has that, as crazy as it can be to a degree, um, it I'm sure that every woman, I'm making a bet, every woman at some point has had a similar thought process. And so let's see. Oh yeah, it's her speech on like being a cool girl, right? And this is just some of it, right? Being the cool girl means I am a hot, brilliant, funny woman who adores football, poker, dirty jokes, and burping, who loves video games, drinks cheap beer, loves threesomes and anal sex, and jams hot dogs and hamburgers into her mouth like she's hosting the world's biggest culinary gangbang. Well, oh, now I have to obviously edit this while somehow maintaining a size 2. Men actually think this girl exists. Maybe they're fooled because so many women are willing to pretend to be this girl. How do you know you're not? If he says that to you, you'll at some point fuck someone else because I like strong women is code for I hate strong women. It is, I don't know, just such a great speech. And I obviously if you have not seen the movie, it is out of context, but there is so much to love about that speech, the cool girl speech that she gives, that I just could not have this list of highlighting well written characters and not have Amy Dunn on this. It's again, you don't need to have a character who is a good character to be incredibly well written. We can all say that her actions in the movie are not something that you in real life should obviously do. But as far as a fictional story that is meant to entertain and meant to stimulate the mind, she is one of the best on screen women that I have ever seen. And I stand by that. Let me know if you agree or not. But moving on, I also wanted to mention the characters like I wanted to mention the characters like Wanda from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, this may be a little bit of a controversial take because there has certainly been some criticism on her character and how she is written. And you can certainly make the argument for maybe she is not the best well written character in the MCU, especially when there has been a lot of bad when it comes to the writing of women in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially in the early years of the MCU. To a degree as well now, but I do think it's getting better. But what I like about Wanda is that I do like her as a character, honestly. And that may sound very like, well, Tia, that is very bland and not explanatory at all. What I mean is that her character is not a perfect character. Her character does make very many mistakes, and there is a degree to conflicting redemption arcs or story arcs in general. If you watch something like WandaVision, she did have this very clear story arc, this very clear trauma response to losing Vision in Avengers Infinity War. That and in WandaVision, it feels like that seemingly got wrapped up. And then when we get to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it almost seems like everything we saw in WandaVision was undone. I still maintain that I actually really love Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It is honestly one of my favorite movies of Phase 4. It gets a little bit of flack, but I thought it was great. And I loved Wanda as the villain. I think that we almost expect Wanda, since she is an Avenger and she does have all these powers, we expect this degree of get your shit together almost. But if we look at Wanda in a whole and everything that she's been through in her life, I think that it makes sense for her character to kind of have this slight break where she does say, I'm so tired of looking at the bigger picture and sacrificing my happiness for the greater good when I just want the love of my life back. Or I just want my children back, even if her children in the current timeline aren't even real. And I kind of love that. I kind of love that. And maybe it's because Elizabeth Olsen did such a phenomenal job in portraying Wanda that I'm willing to forgive that we essentially see her go through the same thing in WandaVision and in the Multiverse of Madness. But just everything that she had to go through, and you can say obviously everyone else has been through their fair share. Thor, of course, has been through such horrific heartbreak as well. When people say, oh, name someone who's gone through more than Wanda in the MCU, obviously Thor has also gone through some bad shit in the MCU. So has everyone. So I don't think it's a competition of who lost more, but Thor, if we want to make a comparison for a general second, Thor is a god and a warrior. Wanda was just a little girl who lost her parents, who then went through horrific experimentation. We see her lose her brother. She finds a degree of happiness. And then she is treated as the villain because she is different, but she still finds happiness with Vision. She loses Vision. She gets a small, albeit fake, degree of happiness with fake vision and fake children. And I think at that point, she's just sitting there going, again, I helped save the world. When do I get my piece of cake, essentially? Um, I don't know. I think that I sat there, and maybe it's because I love, you know, women who are villains. I kind of sat there in the multiverse of madness and I said, "You go, girl." As horrific as that sounds. So I don't maybe have like the best explanation for why I think Wanda is an incredibly well written character and a well portrayed character by Elizabeth Olsen, but I just wanted to put her on this list. I also want to talk about the character of Furiosa from Mad Max, Fury Road. To me, that is one of the best movies that came out in the mid 2010s. Obviously starring Tom Hardy, although I think that that movie completely goes to Charlize Theron as Furiosa. I love her character. I love how strong her character is. I love that her character is driven by wanting to make sure that she gets other women out of the hands of a evil tyrannical dictator who only looks to use them as essentially incubators for his children. Furiosa sacrifices literally, well, looks to sacrifice herself in order to make sure that other women are free and not slaves to this evil man. I love her relationship with Tom Hardy's character, Max. I enjoy her character as being a fighter while also being a human being. I think that sometimes there's this thing with female characters where you write them in what you think is a strong manner, and that just means tough, silent, and brooding without any sort of depth or dimensionality. And in my opinion, I think that Furiosa over the course of the movie um, showed enough depth to not be a one dimensional character. So I obviously have to throw her in there. Getting down to the last like two people that I'm going to highlight here. This one is a little bit of a selfish one because she was one of my favorite characters growing up. And I have to talk about the character of Mulan from the Disney cartoon movie. You may disagree with me, but as a young girl, and just for context, I was born in 1990, I believe. When did Mulan come out? Let's look. In 1998, so I was 8 years old. Um, I looked at the character Mulan as an absolute role model. Um, so often growing up, girls are told to play with dolls, wear dresses, wear pink, let men handle things. And growing up and watching someone like Mulan throw all that to the wind, in her society's, not fit in society's uh, model of what a woman should do, and then pushing everything aside to save her father, to fight for her country. I absolutely love that. I mean, I am a 32-year-old woman and I can watch Mulan to this day and still cry when the emperor has everyone bow to her and saying that she saved China. Oh my God. I love that scene. It gives me goosebumps. And especially as a little girl watching it, because I think that nowadays we are getting away from gender stereotypes. It's much more recognizable for girls to play with things that are not traditionally girl stuff. But back in the 90s, there was very much still this stereotype of, girls play with Barbies, boys play with this, and yada, yada, yada. So seeing someone like Mulan in a cartoon form was just amazing to me. So I do think that Mulan was well written. I can still go back and watch that and absolutely love it as an adult. So I selfishly put it here. And I have to end off this video with talking about, in my opinion, one of the best written female characters in TV show history, in pop culture, and that is Olivia Benson, played by Mariska Hargitay. I mean, Law and Order SVU has been around for what, 25 seasons now at this point? Um, and throughout that, we have seen the character Olivia Benson just go through everything. Her character is not only strong, she's authoritative, she's nurturing, she's vulnerable. She, in my opinion, is just everything to me. She fights for what's right. She, is a mother. She is a good friend. She is this amazing character who has taken on so many different roles throughout the length of Law and Order SVU, and I absolutely love it. I think that if you want to talk about long lasting women characters in TV and how you can have them be completely realistic and also just write them incredibly well, I think you have to look to someone like Olivia Benson. Um, I think that she's just amazing. Long story short, I just think that she's absolutely amazing. She kicks ass. I think that the day that Law and Order SVU goes off air and we no longer see Olivia Benson is going to be a really odd day in pop culture. But as far as I'm concerned, I grew up with this character, and I think that she is inspiration for a lot of young women who watch Law and Order SVU, who watch, syndicated and cable network TV shows. I think it's important to have a character like Olivia Benson on the screen that is played every single year. I mean, every single week and every single year. I think she's just great. And that, I am sure that someone can put it into words more eloquently than I have. But to end off this video, I definitely wanted to talk about Olivia Benson because, as someone who is in her early 30s, I simply cannot leave her off of a list like this. So happy International Women's Day. So happy International Women's Day. Obviously, this is a fraction of female characters from TV shows, movies, books, video games. I have not mentioned even 10% of who you can put on a list. This is just ones that I could think of and ones that I wanted to highlight. And I would love to hear your opinions down below on characters that you feel are incredibly well written and well portrayed. I want to know what kind of movies you would recommend watching. This is Women's History Month, and March 8th is International Women's Day. Please let me know who you would highlight if you were doing your own little top 10 version. And as always, please make sure you give a like. Make sure you follow Geek Vibes Nation if you have not. And I will be back for other character analysis like I've been doing. As I said earlier in the video, I did a character analysis of Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones, and I was very proud of that one. So if you wouldn't mind checking that one out as well, that would be great. But yeah, as for now, this is Tia from Geek Vibes Nation, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.